All right, so we talked last Wednesday night about one of the house values that we have is that Jesus is better. And so I want to give you a biblical example of that. And so you can kind of see what I mean by that. I don't mean that Jesus is better in the sense of your life is going to be filled with butterflies and roses. You know, I'm not trying to convince you of that. But I want you to see how Jesus is better, the house value fits in with our mission statement. So let's look at Acts 16. It starts in verse 25. Now, the story starts here, or the part of the story that we want to jump into, but the story starts earlier because Paul and Silas are traveling and they come across this demon possessed girl who these other guys used for to make money, right? Like they would auction her off, type of thing. She would tell people their fortunes, things like that. So anyways, they're using her for profit, and Paul and Silas, she keeps like yelling at them. So Paul and Silas runs, get out, and the demon comes out of the girl and she's released from that. Well, obviously the guys who were making money on her are none too happy, and so they accuse them of stealing from them and doing different things and hurting them, and so they're thrown in jail. So Paul and Silas are both in jail. Now, jails back in those days were not like they are now. They were terrible as just pits a lot of times, and it was nasty. So anyways, they're in this jail, and then verse 25, but at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were open and everyone's chains were loosed. Woo! We get out of jail free card. And the keeper of the prison, waking from sleep and seeing the prison doors open, supposing the prisoners had fled, drew his sword and was about to kill himself, because that was the punishment for letting prisoners go free. But Paul called with a loud voice, saying, "Don't do yourself any harm, for we're all here." He called for a light and ran in and fell down trembling before Paul and Silas, and he brought them out and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" You know that Paul and Silas were in a prison for doing something God had commanded them to do. Yet Jesus was better to them than complaining, than having a negative spirit. And so they're singing and praising God. And because of that, they accomplish the mission statement. How do you ask? Because our mission statement is to change our community and our world by growing passionate followers of Christ that love God and love people. So Paul and Silas here, they sing, they praise, they pray to God, they sing praises to him. And this Philippian jailer comes and goes, "What must I do to be saved?" But the story gets better, because then after that, after he accepts Christ, he goes home and tells his family, his household about Christ, and they accept Christ. That's a change in the community. Now, that never would have happened if Paul and Silas, sitting in the bottom of that jail cell, hadn't said, "Jesus is better than the situation, and we will still sing and pray to him." That's what I mean by Jesus is better. Circumstances are not always going to be rosy. They won't. But Jesus is always, always, always better. The teen of the day today is Dylan. You pray for him, and as he's having his senior year, that he finishes up well, keeps his grades up, and just kind of has a smooth transition into after school. All right, you guys have a good day.